forest always felt like a second home to me until the night it called me by my name. It started as a normal weekend camping trip at Ridgewood Forest, a place famous for deep woods, long silent trails, and a history no one liked to talk about. I went with 3 of my closest friends, Adam, Kyle, and Jordan. We'd been planning the trip for weeks. None of us expected that the forest had been waiting for us. We reached the campsite at 6 p.m. The sun was bleeding orange light through the trees, giving everything a warm but strangely unsettling glow. The forest looked endless, darker than usual, way too quiet for a place filled with wildlife. As we set up the tents, I noticed something odd. The tree line behind our camp spot was unusually dense. Tree trunks so close together you could barely see between them. It felt like a wall, a solid dark barrier of wood surrounding us. By 9 p.m. we had a fire going. We cooked, laughed, and talked about random things. Everything felt normal until the wind stopped. Every sound in the forest faded instantly. No insects, no leaves, no breeze, just a heavy silence. The type that makes your skin tighten because you can feel something watching you. Around midnight, Adam said, "Did you guys hear that?" We shrugged it off until he stood up, wide-eyed. Staring at the tree line, he said someone whispered his name. I walked toward him and listened. At first, nothing. Then the faintest, weakest breath of sound drifted through the trees, a whisper stretched thin like it was being pulled apart. Ah, damn. The voice wasn't coming from any human throat. It didn't sound full. It sounded hollow, like someone trying to whisper without lungs. We froze. Adam shouted, asking who it was, but the only response was another whisper, closer. Ah, damn, come. Jordan killed the fire for a second to make the area darker. Maybe he thought whoever was messing with us would show themselves. At the moment the light died, the whisper multiplied. It didn't just say Adam's name, it said all of ours. Softly, slowly, in different tones. Like multiple voices learning how to speak. We relit the fire instantly. None of us wanted to admit it, but something felt wrong with the forest itself. The tree line looked like it had shifted closer. Branches that weren't there before seemed to lean over us like claws. At 2:45 a.m. we heard footsteps between the trees, slow, dragging, uneven. Adam shined his flashlight. That's when we saw the figure, tall, skinny, shoulders too narrow, head tilted, no face visible, just darkness. But the whisper came clearer now, right behind us in our ears, despite the figure being far away. Come, inside. Inside what? Inside the forest. Inside the trees. We didn't wait to find out. We ran. The whisper chased us, not from behind, but from every direction, like it was inside our skulls. Even when we reached the car, we could still hear it faintly. Weeks after, Adam said he still hears it sometimes, not loud. Just a small breath behind him when he's alone. Sometimes calling his name, sometimes calling mine, and sometimes just laughing. People romanticize camping alone, the idea of being completely free, surrounded by nature, away from the noise of the city, the fresh air, the quiet, the stars overhead. That's how I felt when I decided to go to Black Ridge Campsite, a place so remote, so abandoned, that even rangers rarely visit. Perfect, I thought, peaceful, alone with nature. I arrived just before sunset. The forest was a mix of gold and shadow. Tall pines loomed overhead, their long branches swaying slightly, though there was almost no wind. Campsite itself was completely empty, no cars, no tents, no voices. Just a single wooden sign, half-rotted, leaning slightly to the side, and a few old fire pits blackened and crumbling with years of neglect. I unpacked my gear slowly, deliberately, savoring the quiet. The forest seemed to stretch forever in all directions. The dirt under my boots was soft, scattered with pine needles, and the smell of damp earth mixed with the faint scent of decaying leaves. I chose a flat clearing to pitch my tent. The moment I hammered the stakes into the ground, I realized how deep the silence was. Not normal quiet, but a heavy, almost alive silence that pressed down from the trees, making my skin crawl just slightly. By the time the tent was fully set up, the sun had disappeared behind the horizon. Twilight faded into deep blue, and shadows from the pine trees grew longer, stretching across the clearing like dark fingers. I cooked a simple meal, but it tasted bland. Every sound, the crackle of the fire, the clink of utensils, felt unnaturally loud. Even my own movement seemed amplified, echoing through the trees. I tried to distract myself with my phone. phone, scrolling through social media, watching videos, anything to keep the dread from creeping in. But as the battery died, the forest claimed its silence back. Total suffocating quiet. Around 1 a.m., I woke suddenly. Something had woken me, though I don't know what. My body was tense. My heart skipped a beat. The forest was too quiet, and then I heard it crunch, soft, deliberate footsteps on the forest floor. Crunch, another. They were moving slowly, methodically, circling my tent. My breath caught. I tried to tell myself it was an animal, maybe a deer, a raccoon. But animals don't step like this. They don't move with calculated patience, like they're studying you. The steps grew closer. My chest tightened. Then they stopped. Right behind my head, a weight pressed against the tent wall. Long fingers spread wide, pressed into the fabric. I could feel the slight give of the canvas under each finger. The hand slid slowly, dragging across the tent almost curiously. Every movement made the faintest scratch. I whispered, barely audible, hello, silence. Then came the breathing, heavy, wet, too close. My heart pounded so hard I could almost feel the pressure of it echoing outside the tent. Who's there? I asked, forcing my voice to sound steady. A whisper came back, wrong, harsh, raspy, as though it hadn't formed words properly in years. Come out. The hand vanished. Then came a new sound, something dragging across the ground around my tent. Fingernails scraping dirt, leaves crunching. Then laughter. Low, broken, choking, trying and failing to sound human. I gripped my knife tightly. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs refused. I couldn't move. The forest seemed to hold me there, frozen in fear. I stayed awake for hours, the darkness pressing in from every side, my imagination filling every shadow with shapes I could almost see. Every rustle, every crack of a twig made my heart jump. Time stretched. Minutes felt like hours. I whispered my own name, tried to convince myself it was just a dream. But the prints outside the tent at sunrise told me otherwise. Not footprints, not human tracks. Knee marks, palm smears, finger trails dragged along the ground in a crawling, unnatural pattern. Whoever or whatever had circled my tent didn't walk. They crawled. They moved in ways humans don't. Later, I reported what happened to the rangers. One of them leaned in and said quietly, "There's a man. People have seen him crawling through the woods at night. Tall, thin, silent, approaches tents. Leaves no footprints, always whispers the same words. I never camp alone again. I haven't, and I don't think anyone should. There's something in those woods. Something that watches. Something that waits, and it doesn't move like us." Great Pine Campground was alive that weekend. Kind of place that feels almost too full of life to be dangerous. Kids were running between the trees, their laughter echoing through the pines. Parents grilled burgers, smoke drifting lazily through the air. Music played softly from portable speakers. Someone nearby was telling a funny story and a group erupted into loud, warm laughter. It felt safe, not normal, like nothing bad could ever happen there. But horror doesn't always arrive with storms or screams. Sometimes it walks up to you quietly, politely, and looks just as harmless as any other teenager. It began just before sunset. Boy, maybe 17 or 18, walked into our campsite. At first glance, nothing about him screamed danger, but something felt off. His clothes were dusty, like he'd walked miles through the dirt. His hair was messy, tangled. His expression wasn't frightened or exhausted. It was distant, detached. His eyes were strangely wide and glassy, almost like he was looking through us rather than at us. He spoke softly. "Have you seen my group?" They were wearing red jackets. Jenna, my girlfriend, being the kind and trusting person she is, offered him water immediately. He didn't smile, didn't blink, just nodded once and took the bottle with a slow, mechanical kind of movement. We told him we'd help him look for his group. It felt like the right thing to do, a kid lost in the woods. But the deeper we went into the search, the more wrong everything began to feel. He didn't walk beside us. He didn't lead us. He always stayed exactly 3 or 4 steps behind, moving with a strange stillness, like his body was there but his mind wasn't. He barely blinked. He didn't look around like someone searching for friends or family. He didn't call out for anyone. He didn't even ask where we were going. He just followed us quietly, head slightly lowered, eyes fixed on the dirt. We went from campsite to campsite asking people if they'd seen anyone in red jackets. Every answer only raised the tension. One man said he'd been hearing shouting earlier near the East Trail. Woman mentioned the scream echoing from the woods just before sunset. An elderly couple told us the forest felt wrong today, heavy, like something was watching. Every new detail made the air feel colder. But the boy never reacted, never asked what they meant, never showed any fear or urgency. He just kept that vacant expression, still, silent. Following. By the time we reached the ranger cabin, even I was starting to feel uneasy. The sky had darkened into deep orange and purple, and the forest looked thicker, darker, more oppressive. Ranger opened the door, and the moment he saw the boy behind us, his face drained of color. His voice came out in a terrified whisper. "Both of you inside." Now, we turned to call the boy in, but he wasn't there anymore. He didn't walk away. He didn't run into the forest. He simply wasn't there. One blink, and the space he occupied was empty. Inside the cabin, the ranger locked the door immediately. His hands were shaking. He didn't even ask what happened. He just went straight to a drawer and pulled out an old, worn file. He slid a photo across the desk. He looked familiar. He asked quietly. It was the boy, the same. Wide eyes, the same blank expression, the same dusty clothes. The ranger told us the boy and a hiking group had vanished the previous year. When the search teams found the group weeks later, their bodies were scattered deep in the forest, torn apart by something the officials never publicly explained. But the boy's body was never found. The ranger said sightings of him had been reported every few months. He always looked the same, like he just wandered out of the woods, asking for help, asking the same question. When he's followed back toward the ranger station, he disappears before reaching it. That night, we tried to sleep, but the story sat in our minds like a weight. Every rustle of leaves made us jump. Every whisper of wind felt too close. Around 2 a.m., Jenna woke me with a trembling hand on my arm. She whispered, her voice cracking, "He's outside." At first, I didn't hear anything, just her breathing and the faint hum of insects. But then a soft, familiar voice drifted through the thin tent wall. "Have you seen my group?" It was closer than I expected. Right outside. No anger in the voice. No urgency. Just the same calm, polite question. We didn't answer, didn't move, didn't unzip the tent. We sat frozen, listening to footsteps circling us slowly, soft, deliberate, not rushed, not confused, just moving. At one point, something rested against the tent wall, a hand, cold enough to feel through the thin fabric. Fingers spread, pressing gently, as if feeling for the zipper. Eventually, the sound stopped. We stayed awake until dawn. When the sun finally rose, we unzipped the tent cautiously. The campground felt normal again. Birds chirping, breakfast fires starting, people waking up. But around our tent were small footprints, forming a perfect circle, and right beside the zipper, a single wet handprint smeared slightly. As if sliding down, we packed up immediately, didn't talk, didn't eat breakfast, just left. Hours later, on the long drive home, Jenna finally spoke. "Do you think he wanted help?" she asked. I didn't know how to answer. Then she added something that still chills me whenever I think about that night. What if he wasn't looking for his group anymore? What if he was looking for new people to join them?